Podwalkers, and welcome to another episode of the Goblin Lore Podcast. This is your host, Hopsq. Today's episode is recorded with Hunter Pence, 2 times World Series champion, member of the San Francisco Giants. Him and I recorded this a while ago, and I realized that we just started talking without ever really introducing ourselves or setting up the episode. So because of that, I just want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy this part 1 of my conversation with Hunter Pence.
Because I don't even know where to find the story, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and so that's great because we can talk about that too, because it's a new area that you could learn about. And I mean, this is one of the things that why we love this game. We're a big emphasis on the gathering, so that's kind of our emphasis, is this idea that the game can be played in so many different ways and by so many different groups, and there's communities within communities, which is one of the reasons I think that it's continued. And one of those communities literally is what we call the Vorthos community, which is people who care more about storyline and tend to focus things on like the art, the flavor text, the cosplayers, that sort of piece of the game, more so than just gameplay.
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you, I like actually all of it because I do love the story, and I've always wanted to like I love stories in general.
Yeah.
And I've always been like, I want to know kind of the story, and like each set I have, like I get a feeling. Like I do a lot of draft and a lot of sealed, and I just got into standard, and I actually just this set I bought like a few of the whatever the promo like commander things are. So I played like one thing of commander.
Awesome.
I've done a little standard recent, just this last like 2-3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing on paper, just on arena. Because I got invited to a tournament, so I tried to, like, I'm really good at draft and all that. But each set that's come out, probably the last 3-4 years I've been playing, most every one of them I've played a ton of the limited.
Yeah.
And so I know like a lot of the kind of the themes, and they all, because especially the ones that I play a lot, like I feel the story just through playing the games.
Which is such a great point, and that's what we like, is you don't have to know. There's minutia and details, and I mean, they actually had story even from the very, very early days. There used to be novels a lot more. So there's been some recent kind of resurgence of them attempting to do novels again. Mm-hmm. When you used to buy like the bundles that came with 8 or 9 packs of cards with the carrying case, they came with a magic novel that was completely separate. So from the early, if you go back to the early sets, so I don't know when you started playing.
Let's see. I don't remember exactly. I want to say I was in 5th or 6th grade.
Nice.
And so whatever age that is, I'm 36 now.
Yeah.
And I played for maybe a year, maybe 2 years.
Okay.
And I had very little money. Like I maybe put like $50 in, and I think I just bought like the beginner packs, and we like played a bunch of them. And I don't even know if I knew the rules, but I loved it.
Yeah.
And then I've played like super hardcore since, I want to say 2015 or 16. 16 is when I started.
Okay. So in the old stories, recently when we did the kind of the Return to Dominaria with that set, it was really a big deal because Dominaria for a long time was the main plane of Magic. That was where the storylines kind of took place until we started moving out towards, Ravnica and Mirrodin and
so these
Kamigawa.
Are different lands.
Yeah,
the sets are lands.
They're basically like different planes. So that's the whole idea, is that the travel between them requires the planes walker, because you have to be able to walk between planes.
And so what is a plane? Is it like a planet, or is it like a state, or?
I would say kind of like a planet. I mean, that's kind of how a good way to think of it is it's its own contained world. So so if you think about something, you'll see that they're saying.
I hope we're podcasting right now. Is this all live?
I did start recording.
Okay,
yes.
Good. Because I want to tell you this before you go further, which I think we should go further.
Yeah.
I wanted to save this for the juice, but
yeah.
At our wedding with my wife, because like I love Magic so much, we named our tables after Magic sets, and we don't really know the story.
Yeah.
But it was like, and I'll tell you that I started in like Zendikar. When that was like, I think it was like Zendikar and what was the other one that like went with that one? Because it used to be 2 sets that went together.
So we had So there's the original time on Zendikar we had Zendikar, and then we had. Did you come back in and like battle for Zendikar?
Yeah, battle for Zendikar. I actually can open my thing and pull it out. And I like Shadows over Innistrad. I played a ton of, which was right after Battle of Zendikar.
Yeah.
Yeah, here it is. Battle for Zendikar, and then Oath of the Gatewatch. I have a like closed box of those.
Oh, that's all. So that was actually the second time in the story for Magic that we had been to Zendikar. Okay. So we had dealt with the Eldrazi kind of rising. They had been basically locked away and trapped to stop them from doing what Eldrazi's do, which is devour everything. And so the first time that Magic saw Zendikar, it was a plane where the Eldrazi were trapped and they get released. And so when we came back for battle, it was basically a return to them now on the plane dealing just tons of havoc.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's like, so we went from Zendikar to Innistrad, which was kind of a gothic world, and we had been there before too.
Shadows over Innistrad, and me and Connor Gillespie played so much Shadows over Innistrad. Like I taught him Magic with that set, and he was like addicted to it.
I mean, yeah.
It's such a cool, like the werewolves and like and zombies, and he just literally loved it. It got him addicted to Magic.
Now, have you guys gotten any chance to play the original then?
No, I heard that everyone didn't like Shadows over Innistrad, but we didn't know any better because this was the first set that we like dove into,
Yeah.
So I didn't know any better. I was like learning Magic through that set, and I heard that a lot of people didn't actually like Shadows over Innistrad because they expected so much from the first Innistrad.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance from a gameplay perspective, Innistrad Dark Ascension is probably one of my favorite limited formats of all time.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean there was so many really cool decks that you could do built around like vampires and using your graveyard and flashback mechanic. I mean, there was just a lot that really went with that set. So if you ever get a chance to check it out, it really established kind of that gothic world too. So yeah. So you guys had tables named after these sets, basically.
Yeah. So we had like Innistrad, Kaledash, Zendikar, Ravnica, like all of that was like the names of our tables at our wedding. We had 260 some people, or 200 somewhere in that range.
Nice.
Yeah, so
I got my wife to agree during our wedding vows that she would never throw out my Magic cards.
What?
And I didn't know about that.
So funny story about throwing out Magic cards. I had to throw them out when I was a kid. So I want to say that I played in like the Ice Age. When was the Ice Age?
Yeah, that was 95, 96.
That was, I think, when I played, because I remember having like woolly mammoths and a bunch of spiders. And I do have some lightning bolts. Like one of my good buddies when I was young that I played with actually brought his like old Magic cards, and it was like super low power level, but the lightning bolts were cool.
Yep.
But my parents made me like throw all of mine away because they were evil at the time.
Yeah, at the time.
Yeah. But the thing I love about Magic is that every card is a piece of art, like every card. And I literally fall in love with the art. I feel the story of the sets. And so I want you to kind of, like, I'm enjoying kind of hearing sort of the story, like, for instance, of the battle for Zendikar, which, granted, like, the aliens and all of that, like, in that art wasn't as much my favorite as, like, for instance, like, an Aether Revolt or Hour of Devastation.
Yeah.
Like, these places were awesome. Like, Kaledash and Aether Revolt were so cool.
And that's what I love, is that each set has its own feel for the art. I mean... and Magic art in general, one of the things that's awesome about it is just seeing even the change from some of the old art, a lot more cartoony, a lot more differences, kind of clear differences in style, versus now there's a lot of just, I mean, I like all the art in Magic, and I'm a big fan of kind of going back even before, but you get the set through that. I mean, it's just... to me, that's one of the things we've talked. We've actually interviewed a couple of artists on this show before, and
oh, sweet,
yeah, Titus Lunter and Adam Pascal, who are both amazing for their landscapes and lands, especially. So, if you played any of Modern Horizons,
I played I did one sealed.
Okay.
With Modern Horizons, it's amazing.
So all those snowlands were done by Titus Lunter, who's a
Yeah, and I use some of them in my drafts and stuff on Friday nights, so it's funny.
Yeah, so it's just really cool because yeah, I don't know how. So Mark Rosewater has these terms for what type of players are, and it started with this idea of kind of Timmy, Spike, and Johnny. Have you heard of those?
No, I haven't.
Okay, this is cool. This is awesome. So this is basically just that they were designed as what are called psychographics, or how people identified how they play Magic. So Spike is kind of your player that would be more like your tournament player. So they're the player that just wants to win kind of at all costs. Versus Johnny's more of your combo player who just cares about how cool kind of something is. They want to assemble a contraption and have it. It doesn't matter if they win. If they could do that, they would be just very, very happy. And Timmy just wants to put giant creatures on the board, turn them sideways, and just attack you. So R&D kind of created these psychographics as kind of they're having cards for each of these type of Magic players. And Mark Rosewater revisited it with later kind of this idea of what we would call a Vorthos, who is somebody who plays for the flavor of the game. And then even what is called a Melvin. And a Melvin is somebody that cares about the mechanics and just they like to see really cool things within mechanics, less so about decks or how to build them, but just how do you play around a certain flashback, or how do you play around revolt or one of those mechanics. So yeah, so the Vorthos community really is the one that dives deeply into the storyline. And yeah, so we'll read the novels. You know, there's novels, there's comic books, there's web stories. But as you are kind of saying, a lot of people see the story just through the cards themselves. So card names, the art, and then the actual little like pieces of flavor text at the bottom of the card.
Okay, so one of the things that I need to get better at is a lot of times I don't even know the name. I don't look at the names of the cards at all.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I literally just look at the art and kind of have an idea. Like I read what it, like obviously what it does. And like I know the card, but I can't tell you the name of the card, but I know the card.
Right. Like, and, you know, I used to play a lot more Legacy. So I played Storm in Legacy, which is my favorite deck of all time. And when I was playing that much Legacy, I could play against somebody with foreign language cards, and it really probably didn't matter because I just knew what the card did just by seeing it across the table. Yeah.
Just from the art.
Yeah. The art. Yeah.
Okay. That's impressive to play Legacy and like know what the card does just when you see it, because obviously like I don't know any of the Legacy cards, and like when I go and play EDM, it's like reading a book. Like I have to read every single card because it's all the old cards that I don't know. Yeah. Like I know from kind of I don't remember Zendikar much, but kind of Shadows of Innistrad on. And like a lot of times I'll have to get like a remembrance of a lot of the old sets because it's been years obviously since I played them. But when it's like for instance Standard right now, like I know everything that's happening with that and everything and like the set right now, which I really, really love this set a lot.
Eldraine.
Yeah. Yeah. Thrones of Eldraine.
So what are you playing? I do have to ask.
What
are you playing? Because people are going to want to know what deck you're playing.
In Standard? Okay, so this is another thing that I want to memorize is I'm starting to get like some of the 2-color combos and starting to learn the names of them. Okay. But I definitely don't know the 3-colored combos. Okay. But I have 3 Standard decks online that I'm playing. I have a Rakdos Sacrifice deck. Yep. I have like mono black like discard, and it's just like Witch's Cauldron, the cat. Yep. It has the 3 black mana. When a black card enters, like gain a life, deal a damage, and you can like, and it's like kind of it's very similar to Rakdos Sacrifice, but it makes you discard. I've actually like won so much more with that than the Rakdos Sacrifice for whatever reason. And then my third one, which I just got because one of my favorite cards is Embercleave.
Nice.
And so this one's red, white, and black, and it also has one of my favorite draft cards, which is the 1/2 Flying Knight. That when he attacks, like a 1/1 creature is attacking with him.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it way easier to get to Embercleave in.
Yep.
And so what is red, white, and black called?
So technically, it's called Mardu.
Yeah, Mardu Knights is what
Mardu
I'm playing.
Knights. Yep.
And it has the three mana dinosaur that's a 7/6. And makes you discard on your upkeep. But if you Embercleave him, it's just over if they don't have the answer.
Yep. Yeah. No, and there are so many really fun things to do with that, the discard knight or the discard zombie.
Yeah. Well, like what? I would like to hear. See, I actually really love Standard a lot.
Yeah. So this is probably, well, I guess I'm thinking, so this is the problem. I don't play as much Standard anymore. So I was actually thinking, have you ever played Cube? You mentioned playing Limited. So
everyone is getting on to me about Cube because I've been streaming my Magic a lot lately.
Okay.
And I want to get, like, my dream right now is to get Mythic in Draft and Mythic in Standard. Ooh. I want to get both. Draft is so hard though. I should do Standard first. Like I'm almost Diamond in Draft, and I'm like already almost Diamond in Standard, and I barely played any Standard.
Yeah. I got to Mythic during paternity leave. It was the only time I've gotten to Mythic.
Mythic in which format?
That was in Standard, so it was in Construct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like Standard is much easier than Draft.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pain in the butt to get there in Draft because it's a grind. It's very grindy. I don't know why, but it's way harder.
So Cube, and I could see people. Cube is the ultimate Draft format. Now it's a whole different beast.
That's an opinion in my because if I go into Cube, I don't know any of these cards. Like that's not fun for me.
Right. So it is definitely something that would involve, once you kind of have learned a lot of the old cards, and I mean it definitely would take like a level of investment that I don't know what your time is like, but it is powerful decks and powerful cards to the point where when you learn to play it and you open a pack of 15, you may see a lot of people post online this idea of a pack one, pick one. You don't know what to take. I have literally, you open up 15 cards and all of them are powerful and all of them do just ridiculous things. I've played Cube decks where I've put a turn 1 Eldrazi into play off of them.
Like how many mana is the Eldrazi?
13 to 15.
A turn 1, 13 to 15 mana card?
Yeah. I mean, you're cheating them in off of 1 mana spells like Reanimate that you can so that's why I was saying like the zombie that you get to discard something if you play a reanimation style deck in Cube. You get that out as a 7/6 and then you just discard whatever large creature is in your hand and then reanimate it for 1 or 2 mana.
So that's why the zombie 7/6 card is really good.
Yeah.
Okay. So well, he's really fun in Standard.
And that's what I've heard too. So I just have to remember there's other formats out there.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Magic, like you said, is there's so many styles, and there's so many formats, and there's so many ways to enjoy it.
Yeah,
it's like, and it has something for the Spikes and the Johns and all the names that you said.
Timmy.
Yeah, the Timmies.
Yeah, and then like I said, and then the Vorthos and the Melvin were kind of the redheaded stepchilds that just kind of care more about flavor and not about winning.
And you know what? That's a way too. That it's just fine. It's to me, honestly, I like the gathering. So obviously I do play and I'm pretty good at it and I'm a competitor. I enjoy competing.
Yeah.
When I actually enjoy sometimes losing if I'm learning from it.
Yeah.
Like seeing someone do something crazy cool or watching someone play really good as I'm losing, I'm not actually upset, even though I'm competitive. I'm actually learning from the loss. Like what did this guy build that was better? Where were my decisions that I could have, so I enjoy that aspect of it.
That's awesome. And And I would say that what's great too is you're kind of getting better. Well, just getting more time with the game. You'll even be able. What I think is important, and this is for anybody, is that also being able to analyze your own wins. So, did you actually play well, even if you won a game? Because you can win and not have and made tons of mistakes. Which
oh yeah, and I've done that really hard. Really hard. I had actually a game today, which this is one thing that's a blessing and a curse of streaming when you play Magic. Is one of the cool things is like you're like, oh, I did everything right. There was no way I could have won that. And your chat's like, actually, if you did X, Y, Z, and then you have to kind of like get in this debate, and then but it's like teaches you so much. Most of the time they're wrong, but the one time that they're right, you're like, whoa, and it helps you learn a whole bunch, which is really cool.
Yeah, it gives you that cognitive flexibility. You're kind of starting to. I've seen games where, I'm like, oh yeah, cool. I know how the deck works. I know how it's played, and then I watch it in the hands of somebody like, Autumn, who was playing. So they won. Won one of the Mythic Championships with a fairies. With like the mono blue Flyers deck, and they just had lines of play that I never in my wildest mind would have considered taking.
Is that right?
I knew the deck well. I played it in a lot of matchups. And then saw when they were playing against Reed Duke, who was on the same deck, they just completely, you could see, even with the both of them playing the same decks, finding lines to win with suboptimal hands. And
no way.
Yeah.
That's the crazy awesome thing about Magic.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And that's the fun of it for me, is like unlocking that and playing correctly and like learning the different lines. Like I love like mastering a deck. It's really fun.
Yeah. And that does kind of, so when we had asked you to come on, we kind of had a topic in mind because we, Joe and I especially, who's the one who set kind of this up, are huge sports people. Joe used to write fantasy football sports articles. I used to create my own spreadsheets for fantasy baseball to create my own basically stats to try to weight you guys before selecting you. Pretty sure I had you a couple of years, but
okay.
Yeah, I tried to, but we were interested in this idea of what sports would look like in Magic the Gathering. So
yes.
What it would look like in these worlds. So we're going to get to that, and I want to talk about kind of professional athletes and gaming, because I think that that's a topic that's becoming more and more acceptable to discuss.
There's a lot of professional athletes that are now streaming and gaming,
right?
So it's like, it's really cool.
Yeah. So we like to start out on the show though, because we are very goblin based, so we're a little chaotic and tend to bounce around a little bit. And
love that. I'm a big fan of goblins.
Thank you. We want better representation of goblins in Magic. So, Gavin, if you're listening.
So this is why you liked Modern Horizons.
It was one of the reasons. It brought some of the cards that I had been wanting into Modern. Yeah, some new goblins that are very good. I actually have a goblin EDH deck.
Yes, I actually that's the one time I played EDH was a goblin deck.
See? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Perfect guest. Perfect guest. I'm actually I'm already off topic, but you mentioned having the new Brawl decks. My daughter's name is Gwen, and I'm actually building the Sir Gwen deck.
Okay, so, that's awesome. Love that.
You would like it. It's Mardu Knights with equipment.
Yes, so. I love, and I'm a big equipment fan, especially even in drafts. I'm a big fan of that. Love it.
But we're gonna just straight here. I'm gonna turn it to sports and make it about sports. So
okay.
There are 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th inning in Game 7 of the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
Which character from Magic story that you know of, or that you can think of from your experiences, are you sending up to bat in this situation?
All right. And I've thought of this question because I think it's a great question. And I've bounced around so many. And you want a Planeswalker, right?
No. Legendary, anything. You could be somebody from the background of the art and we would be happy.
Oh my gosh. So I only was thinking of Planeswalkers, and for whatever reason. And like a couple of them kind of struck me.
Okay.
And it's a fun topic. So obviously Gideon to me.
Yeah.
Because he uses a sword, like he seems handy with the steel.
Yep.
Like, obviously, I like Gideon.
Yeah.
Simple. I actually thought of. I might mess up the name here. Is it Dovin?
Dovin, yeah.
Because I mean, he's just like he's got like that mental, like he can just like mind send it out there. I feel like he's like moving things with his mind. So, obviously, I felt like he would be like another one that you're like, it's tough to not believe in him. Okay. And the other one, which is just, I think the art on this guy is great, and he's another one that's just handy with steel, is what's his name? Gadwick? The black-green.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gadwick.
And it sounds like basically the sword wielders are who you're kind of going with here.
I mean, sword wielding and axe wielding is very similar to, hand-eye coordination, in my opinion. But okay. I do have the one mental,
Yeah.
The one mental planeswalker as well. I wish I would have known that this was any legendary creature, and I wish I knew the names of the creatures a little bit more. Okay. But anyone with first strike is definitely going to be tough to beat.
I like that. So see, that's really taking on that mechanic feel that you're saying that first strike is your advantage as a hitter.
If you have first strike or double strike, you're crushing a baseball, like bottom line.
So I mean, I obviously thought of this from different perspectives. I'm gonna.
So let's take Gideon and let's give him an Embercleave, and that's who I'm taking in that situation. See, yeah, double strike Gideon.
This question has so much interest to it. I was going to joke with Joe when he wrote it. I need to know a lot more about what's the situation. Because, 2 outs, but is there anybody on? Because my first is going to be a character that I'm guessing you have probably never heard of. And his name is Norin the Wary. And basically, Norin the Wary is a human creature, human character that whenever a player casts a spell or a creature attacks, he leaves turn. You exile him until end of turn, and he comes back.
Okay.
He's basically Sir Robin, the not so brave as Sir Lancelot from Monty Python. Like he runs at the but I think that he would do really good at just getting hit by a baseball. So if the bases are loaded, homer at bat type situation, he's just going to get hit by a pitch, and he's going to win the game. Now, because he runs away from everything. Well, I think he's going to turn into it. I think he's just going to turn. And
he runs away. He's definitely not getting hit by the pitch. That's the last thing that's happening to him. He's not even going up to bat. I think this is it's a funny thing to talk about, but it's a horrible decision.
So, this is why I'm not a manager. Because
Gideon with double strike, but obviously you're a manager because you've had a fantasy baseball team.
Yeah.
Gideon with an Embercleave, or the guy who runs away anytime anything happens.
And my real answer, as everybody on this who listens to this cast will know, is Nicol Bolas. So I am the world's biggest Bolas apologist. As I said, I am wearing a Bolas sweatshirt right now.
And
have art from Bolas across the room for me. And if I really pick anybody,
I know I've played with Bolas, but you got to remind me of what he does, what colors he is, because then it'll all come back to me.
So Bolas is Grixis. Grixis is your red, blue, black.
Okay.
And his ability on the most recent card.
Oh, is he like the Planeswalker, like the dragon guy?
The dragon Planeswalker. So he's been around in Magic as a character since Legends, which was one of the first expansion sets. And back then he was just a dragon chilling, reading books in his library. And then over the years he has sparked into becoming kind of the main Thanos type bad guy for the last set. So all of the War of the Spark was really about Bolas trying to take basically stop planeswalkers from being planeswalkers anymore. He was basically
so that's why War of the Spark had so many planeswalkers.
Yes, he basically was trying. Spark is like the thing within a planeswalker that makes them able to have the power that they do and to walk between these different worlds.
Okay, that's what Spark is.
Yeah. So being able to go from Kaladesh to Zendikar, you need to have the ability to planeswalk. And Bolas was basically trying to ascend to godhood during this whole situation.
Okay.
So,
I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of Bolas because every time someone plays him, the game is over.
Right.
And it sucks. It's like, come on, you got Bolas out?
So, to answer this question, that is actually a very legitimate answer on my point. The game is over.
Yeah, you're right. Well, that's a good choice. He's very tough to get, but once you get him, it's over.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So we actually did some digging to see what there is in Magic in terms of how sports is played out in Magic. As you would probably imagine, most of it is basically gladiator style death matches, champions fighting for, their own hero. That's probably one of the biggest things. And part of this is because we tend to see Magic in conflict. We're not watching people going to sporting events for the most part. I mean, what we do have is that there is falconry. It's funny that you mentioned having done that when you were recently on vacation, but we do have some cards that mention falconry.
Mm-hmm.
There are some Olympic style tournaments that are mentioned. I don't know if you played any Battle Bond.
No, what is that?
So Battle Bond was like, it was a set that was meant to be played limited for Two-Headed Giant. So they're cards that partner or with other cards, so that you and your teammate could both have them in your deck, and one of them would search the other one out of your partner's deck.
Okay.
And it was arena style kind of duels. It was more kind of Olympian style, but it is actually where we first saw the Kenriths. So the like Will and his sister, Will and Rowan.
No, I don't know any of these people. I've never
they're
heard of these sets.
They're in Eldraine. So Eldraine, the Kenriths are a planeswalker,
Okay.
a brother and sister duo. So Battle Bond was this set where basically it was like there were jokes about wrestling and there were kind of card references to arenas going on.
Okay, fair enough.
Not a ton, once again. On Ravnica at one point, there was a dragon's maze. So there was a maze that all the guilds had to run through the mazes. They had to send basically a champion through this like labyrinth type thing to get to the end. Now, whereas we would normally call that sport, the problem with that being is wasn't like there was a prize for winning. It was the guilds needed to work together. So once again, it was kind of if they didn't work together, everything was going to hell. If they worked together, then everybody was a winner.
I love that.
Okay.
It's a good story.
So, yeah, it's not bad.
Mixed into a game. Was it fun to play?
It was. It is considered to be one of the less good sets of recent Magic design.
Okay. And what year was that, or when did that come out?
So that was our last trip to Ravnica before this. So that came out in 2013. So probably right before you started really kind of.
Yeah, I missed that. I definitely missed that one. I did love, however, War of the Spark, which you brought up. Like, that was one of my favorite drafts of all time. Like,
so what did you like about it, out of curiosity?
Just the fact that there was, like, a Planeswalker in every pack.
Yep.
And a lot of the matches just got probably very, very EDH, where, like, there was just, like, crazy combos going off. And it wasn't just super, like, super aggressive, super rush down. It was just like there was a lot. I guess I liked like the chain lightning or the chain combos. I like to see really cool combos go off. So I don't know which name of player that makes me, but I really enjoy like the ultra combo.
So like assembling, like you needing like 3 or 4 pieces together before you can pull off the win.
Well, I mean, I don't like to have all of that. But I do like that, like, you have a lot of decisions. So I felt like in War of the Spark, like, as you were playing, it was like, instead of, like, I have 2 options this turn, it's like, oh, this turn, we've gotten to turn 4, and now I'm, like, doing 6 things. And, like, my opponent's doing 6 things. And, like, that was fun for me.
I'm going to guess, the competitive nature of you. So that's kind of this idea that you would play any card that was the best card. So if you're the type of player that would just, that's, and these are hybrid, people are not, we always talk about this, they're categories, but they're not.
Yeah, I have bits of all of them. Like there's some cards that I just have loyalty to because I fall in love with the card. And I'm like, I love this card.
No matter how bad it ends up being at times.
I mean, yeah, I tend to be like let's say it's like pack 1, pick 1, and there's like a card that's a little bit stronger, but I like love these 2 colors in the set. and I'm like, ooh, I really love playing this
Okay.
card. And I'm like, this card's a little bit stronger. This card's close to as strong, and it's going to be harder to draft. But man, I love it when it works. Like
So
that.
I
Does
would
that
say
make
that's
sense?
yeah, that is a little bit closer to the Johnny kind of. You like it's Johnny is like the combo player, but he's also the one that kind of like what the cards does and likes to kind of outthink the opponent in some ways.
Yes.
Spike is kind of the one that it's the winning it all. Like it's the hyper competitive, really just
Yeah, like the
wants to
super
win.
boring pick. That's like this is definitely the best card.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like I said, you could be a hybrid of these. I mean, spiky players are the ones who tend to, even if it's a game of EDH, they're not going to be able to maybe casual it back a little bit.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I follow.
You follow it. So, but we're kind of thinking with what do you think sports would look like or team sports could look like in Magic? Like if you're thinking about like these planes like Kaladesh or Ravnica with the guild system, like what do you think? How do you think professional sports could look in this type of a world, in these fantasy worlds?
Well, I feel like one of the things with Magic that's going on is, and maybe because like I said, I don't know the story. There's so like it's such a war-driven thing. Like none of the Magic sets are like, oh, everything's in peace and harmony. There's like some kind of crazy battle going on.
Right.
So like for me, it's like there's no sports, there's no entertainment. Like sports is entertainment. It's when there's peace going on that you play sports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like even like sports in general, like football and stuff was invented because it's like, oh, we need to teach our kids the values and the lessons now. We don't have war. So we'll create this combat of, for fun.
Yeah.
Like that's what sports kind of is like a test of your determination and your work ethic. And like when there's war going on, which is what's always going on in Magic, there is no sports.
Right. I mean, we think about this. So we whenever we get dropped into, it's like a movie, right? We're not just watching people's day-to-day lives.
Yes.
We are fighting. I mean, we are battling. That's
Yes.
why I think the examples we see in game tend to be gladiator type matches. They're death matches. There's stakes involved.
Yes, and and that's the beauty of Magic is there's like 5 colors and you can combine them with like any way you want, and there's like many ways to reach victory. Like in wild, like like Magic, there's like crazy ways to win. There's running your guy out, your enemy out of cards. There's certain cards that win by gaining a bunch of life or whatever the case may be. But the creativity and the imagination of that is, to me, like what makes that battle of Magic, which I know you're trying to ask me like how a sport jumps into Magic, which is like, I don't know. I really don't know how like baseball would jump into Magic, but I do like thinking of the characters of Magic playing baseball. That's more fun for me. Like how do they jump into baseball?
Right. Like how did Gideon get drafted?
I mean, first pick for sure.
You think so? You didn't slide? You don't think he slid down? Teams passed on him because they were worried about what they were going to have to pay for a signing bonus?
I mean, I know that how he gets drafted in the real draft. In a Magic draft, he's first pick.
Right.
Bolas is first pick. Like that. Right. And like, I do love the question of like, that's who's hitting.
Yeah. It does make sense in some ways. It's kind of, I kind of love the idea of drafting in Magic, to kind of think of that as an analogy for drafting for either fantasy football or fantasy baseball. Or
yes, that's actually the analogy that my buddy who was like trying to like teaching me about a Magic draft, which I knew nothing about, like because when I played as a kid, we didn't really know what we were doing.
No,
and I was playing Hearthstone a little bit, and he was like, "Dude, you need to play Magic," and I was like, "People still play Magic? Like that's still around?" And he was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh, I would love to." And so he brought like stuff and kind of showed me how to draft. He's like, "It's like a fantasy football draft, but it's Magic." And I was like, "Okay." And so like the first time I did it, it's like I was immediately hooked. I was like, "This is the most fun ever!" Yeah. Like I absolutely love drafting. Yeah,
I love the idea that it's kind of a fantasy sports situation. Is you basically are starting with a random draft order. You're all starting with kind of playing with what you're able to pick or choose.
Yeah, and you have them all right there. And it's like pick one card, just like pick one player, like who's going to have the best season,
right? And you're kind of having to work from there. It kind of they talk about limited as kind of being that the element of Magic where you do get to have a lot more, the luck component comes in because of what you open or pass or what you're given. But the skill component is greatly emphasized. You can't just buy the cards that go in the deck. You can't just play a deck repetitively over and over again. It's a different style. To me, it always felt like the idea that we're starting with an even playing field. Now, obviously, the people who are better at Magic are going to be at a different playing field. But if I'm playing at my local store, me and 8 other people sitting down, we're starting with nothing in front of us.
Yes, that I love. It's like, and it's just like like sharpen your skill, because if you do go to like your local store a lot, you notice that similar people do well most of the time. Mm-hmm. And so like to the people that say, oh, it's just lucky, like you just got to draw right, or you just got, a lot of times it's similar to the situation with me when I'm streaming, where it's like, oh, there was nothing I could have done. And then my chat's like, well, you forgot that this guy does this and you could have done this. And I like rethink it. And I'm like, whoa, if it wasn't for my chat overlooking me, I didn't even see that there was a better choice for me to take.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm guessing that when you sat down with your friend kind of telling us, you had to start evaluating this idea of card selection and then signals and how, what are you indicating to the people next to you? And I'm wondering, and this comes more now from a hitting perspective, is there overlaps between anything that you were able to take from kind of how you would approach a battle with just a pitcher?
Yes, I actually think there's like so many good correlations between Magic and baseball. Like for me, not just like more so because I don't understand the story as much, but like the playing of Magic.
Yeah.
And like for instance with baseball, you're going over like a bunch of percentages, and like I do feel like Magic, you're looking at as you're playing and stuff, a whole bunch of like percentages that you're going to get a draw land or draw and not a land, or if you keep this hand or mulligan this hand. When you're facing a pitcher, you have like all this info before you go up to bat, and it's basically a ton of percentages. Like this guy in this count throws this pitch 60% of the time, this pitch 40% of the time, and so like there's like a fun aspect of like, okay, what pitch do I want to approach in this at bat? Because a lot of times these major league pitchers, you can't like just sit there and hit everything. You have to, it's like a give and take. And for instance, when you're making decisions in Magic, especially with like drafting, I noticed in Sealed, you have a much better idea of what your opponent has based on a lot of clues. Mm-hmm. But in drafting, it's like, all of the cards in the set and most of the cards that most people play. And it's like, does he have it or does he not? And what's he moving with? So there's like these percentages, and it's like sometimes you like have to make him have the card, or sometimes you have to be like, it's too close of a chance that he has the card, so I need to make this decision. But I love that feeling of the brain of like reading your opponent, and it's very similar in baseball as like having an at bat is like kind of feeling out what the pitcher thinks is best, and he's trying to read you based off of your swings and what's been going on. So there's this beautiful dance in both Magic and baseball. It's going on between the pitcher, the catcher, and the hitter, and between you and your opponent.
What I'm really glad to hear there is you talked about kind of the analytics approach, that making that decision on 60% of the time, I know that this pitcher throws this ball or throws this during this situation. Now, am I going to make them do it? Just like in Magic, am I going to make them have the counter spell? Am I going to make them have the removal? Or is that my winning percentage? How does it get affected by that? And part of that comes down to, as you were saying, knowing all the cards in the set. So are you going to play around, you got to know how to play around the common answers and when to account for the more rare ones.
Yeah. And what's crazy is I feel like in baseball, like in Magic, I actually think it's more, it follows kind of like a similar flow, but I do like, and like I said, I do love that. Like for instance, like a lot of times I'll face a pitcher and it'll be like 1% change up, and I will see like 3 changeups from him in that at bat. And I guess there's there's a lot of times in Magic too. It's like, oh, there's a 1% chance he has the bolus.
Yeah.
And then he has the bolus, right? Like, so I guess it hits you in both of them. Like when you get hit by that 1% in a big situation, it's still painful. But yeah, do you follow what I'm saying here?
Yeah, I mean, because you're also talking about, in some ways, the situation too, the interplay. The pitcher has information about you.
Yes.
Right? So
yes.
That to me is the dance. And it happens in Magic when we're playing, and it's that place of what are you going to bait out of your opponent? What are you going to try to get them to do? You know, if I think that they're running counter spells in their deck, for instance, what do I try to throw out there that I'm okay with them countering so that I can follow it up with something else? And they're also trying to make a decision whenever I play a spell, if they have the counter spell, is this the time that I fire it off? What do I need to do here? And you're kind of saying, you know, this pitcher only throws this 1% of the time, and the pitcher's up there thinking about you. How often does he swing at this pitch? You know, what zone is he looking for?
Exactly. And like a lot of times they're like, oh, you know, their whole scouting report is like, attack this guy with changeups, and they throw the changeup 1% of the time. So maybe that's probably why I saw so many changeups this year from people that don't even throw them.
Now, is that a good thing though?
Well, I mean, I definitely went into some like games where I would like be looking at a pitcher, and I'd be like, if he's done his homework, he's throwing me changeups.
Yeah.
If he hasn't done his homework, he's gonna throw what his strength. Because there's like you have to also like read the pitcher, where sometimes the pitchers just go with what their strengths are. They're like, my changeup's not my best pitch. Like my cutter's my best pitch, and I believe in my pitch more than I believe in your weakness. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's definitely a Magic like percentage like combination going off in my brain in all of the games, and I'm having to read the pitcher and like feel them out. Like for instance, if you're seeing like this red-white guy that's swinging with everything, you're like, okay, this dude's all in no matter what. So he's coming at me with the cutter, even though the changeup might be better, or it might be best that he swings at my planeswalker instead of my face.
Right. Man, this just I need to know, is there a pitcher that you can think of that would just shock you at this point if they would throw you a changeup?
Is there a pitcher that would shock me?
Yeah, like if there's somebody that if they threw one, you would almost just start laughing.
Okay, well I'll give you a fun story, because this guy just signed a really big deal and it's fun to talk about, and I'm super happy for him. And he's actually a friend of mine. He's married to Brandon Crawford's sister.
Okay.
It's Cole. So Cole just signed this huge deal, and it's great for baseball.
It's going to be a tough conversation for me as an Angels fan, but I'm going to
because y'all missed out on him.
I'm not shocked that we did, but I'm just gonna. Okay, I'm ready for the story now. Yeah.
Well, so Cole is like absolutely one of the best pitchers, and like just disgusting, and he's a powerhouse.
Yeah.
But like I know when I'm facing Cole, it's like he's got the four seamer, which is kind of flat. He's got the cutter, which kind of dives away from you, but like there's a certain swing path that can kind of hit both of those pitches. And that's like, I would say, especially when I was facing him earlier in the year, that's like 85% of the pitches he throws is either a fastball or cutter. And then he also has like a 10% maybe curveball and a 5% changeup, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first couple at bats, like he got me out, like I hit a really hard line drive, Reddick like dives, but I was taking kind of like hit the fastball and the cutter, like a path that like really hits those well.
Okay.
Next at bat, he throws a slider and I get a base hit. I didn't hit this one as well, but it like drove in 2 runs. So like the fastball and the cutter, he's starting to realize that I'm kind of on. Mm-hmm. And I know that that's still like 85% of what he throws, but my third at bat, he throws me curveball, fastball for a ball, changeup, curveball, strikes me out. Like
was
all
it,
of the pitches.
Wait, looking or swinging?
I don't even remember. I might have even just grounded out, because it was just like, you don't expect to see 85% of the pitches that he throws 15% of the time. Yeah. So after that happens, I'm like, okay, he realizes that I'm kind of like on the fastball cutter. So I'm coming into the next game and I'm like, is he still going to be throwing me his like secondary pitches? And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to kind of look for like the curveball. And, and like you start working an account and he's starting to throw me more fastball. So I'm like, okay, so it's just like that fun little balance.
So I'm wondering then, if thinking of your kind of your play group or the people that you get to draft with or play limited with the most often, people have play styles. So
yes, they do.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, well, will you tell us what your typical play style is, I guess, in a draft? And then how often you kind of like Yeah.
It's funny because we were actually talking about this with all of like kind of our play group at Coral Sword here in Houston. And it's like, I have a buddy, his name's Rob. He's a butcher. And this dude is always the most aggressive, like fastest, like red. He's usually always red, white in every set, but this set red, white's not like quite as like, I don't know. It can be, but he's usually white, green right now, but he's like throwing the craziest aggro and just attacking. He's the turn right, as aggressive as you can get. And his name's Rob, and he's a butcher. And we're like, yeah, he's always swinging. Yeah. So that you know. And then we have this other guy. His name's Irving. He's a crazy good player, but this guy loves to draw cards. And he's like, I've never seen him not be blue. Like sometimes he's mono blue, but like he's always blue and he's always drawing cards. He's like, that's my favorite. Like that's his favorite thing, and he's always doing really well. He's a good player. Then we have like another guy who's always like for whatever reasons loves to be the knights. And but for me, I actually, and we were all kind of talking about like the different people's like personalities. Like, so what do you guys have for me? And they're like, well, I don't really have a stereotype for you, because I kind of play a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. But I will say that I'm more on the control side than I am. I will play aggressive. I kind of take like what I feel like is the best pick. Like, so there's a balance of all of them for me. I would say each set though, I fall into like different categories. Like for instance, with this set right now, I don't like to be blue green in this set. I'm blue. Like if I'm blue, I'm going to be blue black or blue red.
Why would you want to play with a card like Oko if you opened it? You know,
well, I've never opened an Oko. I would force blue green at that point. But we're just talking about like when you get to the normal cards.
Yeah, the normal cards. I like this.
I would say black is probably the color I am the most, and I'm like kind of a control player, and I like I'll mix black with a lot of different things.
Which makes sense. I mean, so I don't know how much you know about the idea of color pie. Have you heard of this? Okay.
I would love to hear about this though, because I'm like fascinated with the colors and the names and the guilds of it all.
So color pie basically in Magic refers to kind of this establishment of what each of the colors kind of does. You know, its strengths and its weaknesses. This idea that, you know, black is going to be more likely to be black can do most things that other colors can do, but with a cost. So it's kind of a win at all cost type of situation. You know, you can draw a bunch of cards. You're going to have to pay life to do it. Yep. There's going to be trade-offs for it. Red is going to be your passion. It's going to be your aggro. It's the impulse and the chaos. Yep. So each color kind of has these, you know, elements to them. And it doesn't surprise me based on what we've been talking about that you identify kind of as a primarily black player when it comes to how you.
Why is that? I would love to hear this theory.
So it is kind of that you do like to win, and you're willing to take. It's not a win at all costs, but you really are looking for, how am I going to win this game? What is the way that I can gain control over it? Yes. Blue is the other color that kind of aligns with this, so that's why you'll see something like, say, Dimir, the guilds that are blue black. So you'll kind of see that these colors really do align, and actually the way that the colors are aligned on a wheel or a pie, you have enemy colors and you have basically colors that are more partners. So for instance, your black green is a lot less common of a combination than a black blue or a black red, and that's because you know, yes, there can find that. Ravnica is a great way to learn about this, because you see how every guild we have 10 of them. But when we're looking at Magic for a lot of the history, the enemy colors had less cards available. So a black-white card, it's harder to kind of understand what that is versus black and blue. Blue is the knowledge, it's the pursuit of that, to kind of the controlling aspect. And you can see that black has got that control. It wants to win. It wants to be able to take control of the board, versus white, which might be weenie, aggro, order. You're kind of just doing that, versus the black cards are going to be a little bit less likely to. So playing those together, you have to find where they kind of meet, where the idea of order and morality meshes with individualism and kind of that, you know, like exploitation in the individual, which is black.
Okay. I love getting a little bit deeper into like the story and the myth and like the background of it all. I will also say that like blue white, besides this Throne of Eldraine,
Yep.
blue white is like typically something that I play a lot.
So, so blue
Blue
white.
white and black red are like my two like favorites.
So that's really fun. So black red and blue white, both of those are what we would call like friend pairs. So like black red are right next to each other on the color play, and blue white are too.
Okay.
So you're like, kind of like in you're the blue white is like the control. White can really have that taxing, the ability to remove difficult permanents. They both have evasion. You get your flying there. Black red is that aggro, passion, quick.
Yes.
Remove threats out of your way.
Yes. So black red, like some of my favorite things to do in Magic is to like, especially in a draft, if you can ever figure out the way to like, there's like a lot of like gain control of target creature, and then also in black there's a lot of like sacrifice. So it's like one of my favorite combos is like to take their creature, deal stuff, and then sacrifice it and gain stuff off of their creature.
Right.
Like that's like my dream scenario. And then obviously blue white is like, flying, drawing cards, like slowing the game down, and just like kind of beating you in the air, sort of like bringing stuff back from the graveyard, like just like card advantage sort of thing.
If you like black red, you need to buy your play group an original box of Innistrad and draft it.
Oh, is the original Innistrad? But that's like a super expensive box.
Yeah, it's a decently priced box. Yeah,
Innistrad is all anyone talks about. Like literally, if I ask anyone that's played for forever, they're like Innistrad's the best. Like what is it, like $700 or something, or like $500?
400 and something. Yeah, 450.
That's an expensive box of Magic.
It's a really expensive box. I mean, until we start getting into, a box of like Legends.
Legends is the most expensive?
No, I mean Alpha, Beta. If you could find an unopened box of those.
Is there such a thing?
There are. Actually, so Paul Allen from Microsoft like randomly at one point revealed that he had all of this Magic product because he, lived in the Seattle area at the time when the game was getting started, and he had a ton of Magic the Gathering cards just like in his basement or in his house. So, but you're talking on a sealed box of Beta would be, I'm trying to think of last time they sold $8,000.
$8,000?
8,000 plus. I mean, I don't even know if even finding one at this point would be almost impossible. Oh, sorry, no, I think the last one did sell for something ridiculous like 100,000.
What?
Yeah.
100,000?
Yeah.
And like, there's no card that's like 5,000 is the most expensive card you could get.
No. Like if you got like a Black Lotus that had never been opened, you could sell it for, even ones that are more beat up, you could probably get 20-30 grand for.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I knew the Black Lotus was the most expensive, but like I look at them online, and they're like $5,000. I thought. But
so if you look at the difference between having a black border versus having a white border around them. So if they have the white border around them, you can get one of those for probably, 5,000. If they have that black border around them, no, you're looking at tens of thousands of dollars.
But if you're paying $100,000 for a box that most likely doesn't have it,
there's a lot of cards worth money in that set. But yes,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So do you know what the whole Power 9 would all be in there? All the original. A lot of those cards, even just like a common from Alpha or Beta, can easily be worth $100 and something bucks, $200.
Okay.
Yeah. But still, no, 450 is a lot for a box that's in a recent set. Innistrad's not that long ago, but it is really.
Is that the one that has Infect? Because people love Infect.
So that is Mirrodin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the second time at Mirrodin Besieged, and yeah. And see, drafting around Infect makes the game a very different game as you talk about that. If we're looking at that, that is a situation, and I'm trying to think of a good sports analogy for it, because Infect changes the point of the game.
Yes.
You are doing damage in a completely different way. that is not typical. Now, when you draft it in a format, you have to have enough cards that if all of a sudden they're able to remove your creatures and you get them to 8 poison, but all you have out now is creatures that deal regular damage.
Yeah, you're back to 0.
Yeah.
Yep. I've never that's the thing that makes me somewhat sad. It makes me somewhat sad that I never got to play like so many of these sets. Like, have you drafted like every set since you started playing?
I probably started drafting. Oh man, I'm gonna say actually probably shortly before the Infect type stuff came out. Before that, I didn't play as much. I played here and there, Time Spiral, Shadowmoor. I played some during then, but yeah, I really started drafting around the original Zendikar, the Infect of Mirrodin, and then like Innistrad. Those were the sets I drafted like none other. Because it was cheap. I mean, it was normal price at that point to draft Innistrad.
How much? Oh yeah, it was just like $15, right?
$15, and it really is one of the best. Yeah. I'm telling you, at the end of this, what's going to probably happen is this show's going to go out, and we're going to just find somebody that's going to send you a box of it.
No way. Are you serious? That would be the best.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it would be nice. We'll see what we can do.
Yeah, I'd be down. So let me ask you about this. So I have a box of Unstable.
Yes.
Are you a fan of those sets?
Oh yeah, those sets are amazing.
Okay, so I gotta definitely play that. I gotta find a way to get my buddies around and
draft
play
that. Oh, yeah.
I'm actually super excited about that
because it's once again it's Magic in a different way.
Are they having one of those sets this year? Because I feel like that's like a holiday season set.
So no, there's this Unstable was the third of those, and they have been usually about let me see, 10 years between each of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So getting one of those was a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They were the very first time was Unglued was the first kind of like joke set that had those silver borders, and it was the first time they ever did the full art lands, or they did lands that were art in a different way, and then they did Unhinged, which came along. Which really did a full frame art that took up the entire card for the lands. And now we start getting that a little bit more commonly. But so they do them every 5-10 years, depending.
Oh my gosh. So the
been
next
a while.
time one of these comes out, I had to fight hard to get 2 boxes of that.
Nice.
Like I had to look everywhere. It was like so hard to get.
And that's our show for today. You can find the host on Twitter. HobbsQ can be found at HobbsQ. And Alex Newman can be found at Mel_Chronicler. Editing and production was done by Tom Gustafson, who can be found on Twitter at PSGReader. Send any questions, comments, thoughts, hopes, and dreams to @Goblin Lore Pod on Twitter, or email us at goblinlorepodcast@gmail.com. If you want to support your friendly neighborhood gobslugs, the cast can be found at patreon.com/goblinlorepod. Opening and closing music by Vindergotten, who can be found on Twitter at Vindergotten or online at vindergotten.bandcamp.com. Logo art by Steven Raphael, who can be found on Twitter at Steve Raffle. Goblin Lore is proud to be presented by Hipsters of the Coast as part of their growing Vorthos content, as well as Magic content of all kinds. Check them out on Twitter at HipstersMTG or online at hipstersofthecoast.com. Thank you all for listening, and remember, goblins, like snowflakes, are only dangerous in numbers.